Clive Hale for ABC Late Edition News. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Ian McLaughlin has become the first casualty of John Howard's shadow cabinet. The Coalition's environment spokesman has been forced to quit. He admitted misleading the public on the Aboriginal Letters affair after being misled himself.
The responsibility is mine. I take it absolutely. It's nobody else's. And so I have written to John Howard this afternoon and resigned as a Shadow Cabinet Minister.
I accept that in the circumstances it's the correct, principled and honourable decision.
That's how the first casualty of John Howard's shadow ministry was announced this afternoon. Ian McLaughlin taking the fall after 4 days of controversy over his use of secret letters written by South Australian Aboriginal women in trying to prevent the building of the Hindmarsh Bridge on what they say is sacred ground. It was a far cry from Mr McLaughlin's mood when he rose in the House of Representatives on Monday with a series of questions to Aboriginal Affairs Minister Robert Tickner.
Minister, here is a copy of the secret attachments to the Fergie report, the secret letters. Will you explain why you allowed these photocopies of those secret letters to be sent around Australia like flotsam in a wreck?
This was the first Mr Tickner knew of the existence of copies of the secret letters. Mr McLaughlin had them thanks to a mistake in the Parliament House mailroom. The government on Tuesday turned defence into attack. Why had Mr McLaughlin's office copied the documents he received by mistake, particularly the sensitive secret letters? Mr McLaughlin was unrepentant.
My office copied all the documents, and if you want to send us some more, we'll copy those as well.
That robust approach was based on information from his staff. He was in South Africa at the time. That the secret letters were unsealed and unmarked. His case collapsed yesterday afternoon when Mr Tickner brandished the label on the envelope containing the letters.
Speaker, I asked that the envelope be tabled that the Minister was flashing around.
And tabled it was, showing clearly Mr McLaughlin had been misled.
In what's described as an Australian first, a Perth company director's been jailed for polluting the environment. The 53-year-old man was sentenced to 3 months' jail for ordering toxic waste to be pumped into a waterway.
24,000 litres of toxic waste dumped into a stormwater drain led to the historic jail term. A Perth court was told 53-year-old Donald George McMurtry made the order in 1993. Waste, including arsenic and cyanide, was pumped into the waterway, in turn polluting a nearby artificial wetland. The company director's jail term has put Australian companies on notice.
It will be a deterrent because they have never seen themselves or thought of themselves as people who may go to jail, and now they've got to think of it that way.
But the waterway is still polluted, and a $1 million clean-up bill means it's likely to stay that way. The zinc plating company now operating on Perth's southern industrial fringe has no links with the offending company, which went into liquidation. The current managing director says he can't understand why a company would choose to pollute, jail term aside.
It's far more economical to put in a waste treatment plant to treat the material on site.
The former company has also been fined $15,000.
A new twist tonight in the extraordinary tale of the love affair between former prison warder Heather Parker and prisoner Peter Gibb. After a 3-week trial in Melbourne's County Court, Gibb's been acquitted of the crime that sent him to jail in the first place, but he's still behind bars.
It's a curious situation. Peter Gibb is in jail for escaping from prison while serving a sentence for a crime he didn't commit. The saga began in March 1993 when Gibb was found guilty of an armed robbery on an Armaguard van in Melbourne's western suburbs 2 years earlier. He was sentenced to 12 years jail. But just 2 days later, he and fellow prisoner Archie Butley blasted their way out of the Melbourne Remand Centre. They were assisted by Gibb's lover Heather Parker, who was a warder at the prison. After a week on the run, the couple was captured during a shootout in dense forest in Victoria's high country. Butley was shot dead in the crossfire. While their extraordinary love affair was capturing headlines around the country, Gibb's lawyers lodged an appeal against the armed robbery sentence. He subsequently won that appeal and was granted a retrial. Yesterday, after a 3-week retrial, the jury took less than an hour to acquit him. But rather than walking from court a free man, he went back to jail to serve the remainder of his sentence for escaping. Gibb's not due for parole until March 1999. Parker is appealing against her sentence. If this fails, she won't be reunited with Gibb until early next century.
Paul Keating has signalled his opposition to an early rise in interest rates in the wake of better-than-expected employment figures yesterday. Visiting Berlin, the Prime Minister declared the job growth good for Australia's future.
We just passed 560,000 jobs in 2 years. That's a record in the Western world, I think, for employment growth, and that's not a bad future.
Later, at a business lunch, Mr Keating was considering another aspect of Australia's future. He said Australia must be a republic to succeed internationally, that other countries must be made aware that we are not British. The Queen is in Belfast, her first visit to Northern Ireland since the start of the IRA ceasefire. Security forces made their presence felt, but the new atmosphere of peace brought the Queen closer to the crowd, loyalist and nationalist alike. The Queen's presence sent a message beyond her usual non-political role.
It's nice to know that the countries that is in the shape that it is, that you can come and visit, you know, now, with a bit of peace and everything sticking.
In more than 40 years on the throne, this was only the Queen's 8th official visit to Northern Ireland. Now to finance news and a quiet day on the markets except for heavy selling in Tokyo. The All Ordinaries remained steady in today's trading. Overseas, the Nikkei suffered a slump while there was little movement in Hong Kong or New York. In currency trading, the Australian dollar recovered slightly against the greenback but was down against the yen. And now the national weather for the start of the weekend for you. A shower or two expected for Brisbane, drizzle clearing from Sydney, mainly fine in Darwin, fine in Adelaide and the other capital cities. Late edition, I'm Clive Hale. Thanks for being with us around the country. We'll leave you tonight with the 50th anniversary of one of the biggest air attacks of World War II, the firebombing of Tokyo.